Today I want to show you how to clean up some audio tracks. We're going to go from this
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
to this.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
And if you stick around, I'll show you a bonus tip if you don't have the studio version. So let's go through what we got going on this clip here. First thing, I brought up the volume to about 19 dB. You'll see a little bit of volume automation here. This first section had a bit of a spike here. If we look at the original clip and raise the volume, you can see how high that first line is. So I just did a little bit of dip here to bring that down just a bit. And you can add a volume point by hovering over this volume line and hitting the Option or Alt key, turns into a plus, left click, and you can add a point. So that's how I lowered that first line. And now on this particular strip here, I have voice isolation, a De-Esser, some EQ, and a compressor. And I do have my order of operations going EQ first, effects, and then dynamics. So let's look at the EQ. I have a lot of reductive EQ going on here. If we play the clip back, you'll see there's not a lot going on in the bottom end here or the very high.
I'll teach you how to paint like this.
Kind of rolled out all the garbage here and a little bit of the high end. That way it's just not affecting the compressor or anything else. And for bands 2 and 4, I essentially had those as a peak EQ until I found some harsh sounding frequencies. And then I just switched them to a reduced EQ here like this.
In just a few hours.
So that's just cleaning up the signal. Then it moves over into the effects where we have this De-Esser. The De-Esser is kind of like an EQ with a compressor attached. So I chose a sharp frequency around the 5.5K range. I did adjust the range a little bit wider and I have it on about 60%. Now what this does is tame down some of the sharp S sounds. So if we shut this off, when she says the word this, the S is pretty pronounced. Let's check it out.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few.
So the this. Now if we turn that on and play it back,
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few.
it's just not as harsh. So that's what that is. You can find that inside your effects here under restoration, under Fairlight, and there's a De-Esser right here. Now for the compressor, I have it on about a 2:1, just a little bit of threshold adjusted to where whenever she's speaking, it starts to hit it.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few.
So we're getting less than 3 dB of gain reduction, but I have 9 dB of makeup just to bring up that overall volume again. And that's it. Voice isolation here is basically what's doing the lion's share of the work. Let's listen to it with it off real quick.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours. I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
Now it's one of those tools you only get with Studio, but it's one of the tools that makes it worth the price of admission. And I'm using it about halfway, about 41. I don't want it to sound too artificial if you crank it up. Now, if you don't have Studio version, there's a couple tricks you can do to some corrective work on it. I'm going to turn off the voice isolation, the De-Esser, the dynamics, and EQ. So we're basically like at a flat file with just the volume level boosted here in the clip. What I'm going to do is copy this clip down to audio 4. So I'm going to select it, hit Option, copy, and now we have a duplicate. Okay, so now that we copied this track down here, I'm going to go over to the audio 4's path settings. And if I have the phase reverse button turned on, it's going to cancel out this file. So now we don't hear anything. If I have it off, it's just going to be double loud.
I'll teach you how to paint like this.
So once we phase reverse it, because they're the exact same file, it cancels it out. Now what we can do is grab an EQ for audio 4. I'm going to turn it on and reset it. And what we're going to do is whenever we adjust the amplitude of a certain frequency, only that frequency is going to come out. So let's grab band 4 here and we'll loop this. And I'll play this back until we get some sound that we want to hear.
This in just a few hours. I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours. I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
Let's give it some bottom end.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours. I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours. I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
Okay, so now that's only letting through those frequencies and none of the other ones. Now this might be a good time to use the stock noise reducer. So if we go to the bus here, since we're combining these two channels down to a stereo pair, under restoration, under Fairlight, we have noise reduction. So I have that enabled right here. It's just shut off. And if we want to pick a spot where she's not talking, but there's some noise, maybe right here towards the end of the file, we could make an in and go a little bit further and make an out. Then we could hit manual and hit learn. And if we play it, it'll sample that noise. All right, now it's sampled some noise. And if we select the rest of the clip here, let's hear what it's doing.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
Now you can also go auto speech mode.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
You can hear it cleans it up.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just...
That's not too bad. If you want to hear just what the noise is, you can check this listen to noise only box. So that works pretty well for this method.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just...
We can crank up the volume a little bit.
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
And then if we add some music under that, it wouldn't be so bad, because remember, this audio isn't really an ideal piece of audio. So that's a way you can use the old school filtering method by duplicating the track, reversing the phase, and using EQ. Now, one other bonus thing I wanted to show you for cleaning up your files. You can see we have some noise at the beginning and end of this file. If you right-click the clip and choose Remove Silence, you'll get this pop-up menu. There's a threshold, which lets you dial in where the silence is or where the noise is. There's pre-head, which is before the file. So if we want to get a little closer to the start of the line, we could do that. And same thing with the tail. Post-tail will let us go a little closer or a little further away, so we're not cutting off any lines. I leave minimum to strip at 1,000 milliseconds. And then we have a checkbox here for fade, head, and tail. And when we have that on, it's actually going to cut all this red part off and add a fade. So if I hit remove, you can see our file's reduced. And now if we just solo this file out and maybe turn back on our original settings here,
I'll teach you how to paint like this in just a few hours.
that'll help you clean up your files when they're in a pretty poor state. All right, if you found that helpful, consider giving me a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.